We have a rather interesting subject this morning. When I was in Calcutta, I saw a very beautiful temple. It was one of the most elaborate, I guess, in the city. And it cost a lot of money. And it was comparatively recent. And I found out that it belonged to the sect of the Jain, a comparatively small group, between 2.5 and 3 million, but with very great interesting peculiarities. I found the first peculiarity when I decided to go and take a look. Before I got into the building, I was stopped. And I was asked to remove my shoes, my belt, and my wallet, and to put them all on a bench on the edge of a main thoroughfare and walk off and leave them. Well, for Westerners, that was a critical moment. But in the atmosphere of the Jain, it seemed reasonable. Other people did it. I noticed several pairs of shoes along on a bench and several wallets. So I did as instructed and found out afterwards that nothing that involves animal skin or flesh can enter a sacred house of the Jains. They are completely free from the idea of killing animals for any reason, unless it would be for great sickness or terror on the part of the animal. They would give the animal the same care and consideration that they would give a human being. Not only that, but they had an old animal's home, a kind of like a retirement community for ancient animals that would otherwise be killed. At one time, they had somewhat over 800 quadrupeds in there, going through the various phases of old age with dignity, well-fed, cared for, and given veterinarian service. Well, this is something that's a little difficult for the Westerner to appreciate. They go further than this. They make great care of birds, and anything that is sentient to them is sacred, because nothing can be sentient unless the divine spark is within it. This led to a little contemplation of the matter, and it becomes gradually obvious that this sect has an influence far beyond the size of its membership. The members are for the most part from the upper classes of Indian people, in this sense that they are well educated in the professional fields and they have dedications based upon solid scholarship. I think the summary of a giant criticism of Western life, now I'm not quoting them, but I'm taking their idea and putting it into Western words, would be something like this. If there was a home with tremendous contention, family at wit's end, or everybody hating everybody, what would be the Western solution? Answer: paint the house. They think that we believe that if we keep the outside up, nothing else is important. The way we dress, the way we live, the way we eat, the way we think must always be in fashion. And as fashion is 90% wrong and almost 100% a waste of time, we are not getting the most out of the philosophies and integrities which we are assumed to be concerned with. So with that thought in mind, I've been trying to think through a little bit of some of the contributions that the Jain philosophy has made to the principle of harmlessness. This is Ahimsa, and Ahimsa is a word which means hurt nothing. Now that means don't hurt your brother, don't hurt your so-called friend, don't hurt anybody, and if you have an enemy, make a friend as quickly as possible of that person. Just simply do not harm anything, with word, with thought, with deed. And do not build a career that is so competitive that you must make by the loss of someone else. Because as long as we fight things through, as long as we work on the outside only, as long as we put physical ambitions and physical achievements first on our list, there will be no peace in the world. Mohandas Gandhi lived for some time among the Jains, and they influenced strongly his doctrine of harmlessness, or nonviolence. According to these people, we have to look fairly at the facts of things. We are really living in a fantasy, and the fantasy is that everything that is important is physical, and everything that is physical is important. And on this basis, there can be no peace, no harmony, and no end of strife. We cannot achieve a brotherhood of humanity as long as we compete with each other for honors, for wealth, for opportunity, for privileges, and gain those, if necessary, by sharp practices. So the Jain says, take it this way. We are here for 70, 80, 90 years, if we're fortunate, and at the same time, we are surrounded by a great vast area of non-self. We came from somewhere, and we were not there before that. We go somewhere, and the place where we were here is now empty. And in the interval between these two periods, we live and move and create our destinies. The Jain believes definitely that there is a purpose in life. They believe in the immortality of the human soul. They believe in reincarnation and karma. And they believe that the larger purpose of life is to complete and fulfill the total self. And that while we live only on the surface, while we are concerned only with superficial things, and are perfectly willing to try to succeed on the level of vanity alone, we're always going to be in serious trouble and frustrate the purpose for our own existence. So we look a little bit into some of these thoughts, and we find some other interesting things. The Jain, for example, points out that our physical life is very largely influenced by our attitudes, by our emotions, and by our thoughts, and is a constant compromise of principles in order to appear contemporary in a physical way. We mortgage the soul to project a dramatic image of the body. We mortgage our emotions in order to use the will and the energy, the resources, completely for the fulfillment of our human attitudes, appetites, and desires. That we use the body. We abuse it. We make it do things it would never do of its own accord. We deprive it of the cooperation of the inner life. We make it necessary for the inner life to constantly support and defend our outer life. Every internal resource may be devoted to the advancement of ambition or the accumulation of wealth. Now, these two purposes are basically illusional, because there is no permanence in them and no reality in them. We come into this world with no physical belongings except the body. And we go out of this world and we take nothing with us except the soul. Therefore, all of this struggle in between is largely fantasy. The fantasy that makes us believe that we can spend the first half of life accumulating and then settle back and accept and enjoy these accumulations in the second half of life. The idea of this, from the standpoint of the Jain, is that by the time we get through the first half and build our little pile, we're sick and tired, and it's too late to even enjoy what we have accumulated. For about the time where we're going to settle down to the appreciation and use of what we have, we are tormented by the destruction we have wrought within ourselves, and also may be a little affected by bad conscience, and even most affected by ambitious relatives. The answer seems to be there's something wrong with the pattern. Man is better than the world he creates. He is better than the kind of house he lives in. He is better than his appearance. But to the Western thinker, appearance is just about everything. Everything that we can want is either in appearance or in fantasy to attract attention. Usually, if you make people look at us, that's a great achievement. What they see when they look, we don't know. Usually, it's not very flattering. But we keep on living on this surface. And as a result of living on the surface, we have wars on the surface. We have desperate afflictions of one kind or another, economic collapses, psychological fatigues, broken homes, narcotics addiction, alcoholism. All these things are in some way associated with the gratification of something that is not ourselves. The human being has never needed the false stimulation of narcotics. If there is a false stimulation, it is because the natural stimulation of life and its purposes has failed. The inspiration and the pressure to grow should come from the inside, and not by simply bolstering up artificially by bad habits the fatigues of the body. So the Jain begins by considering the probability of getting down to essentials. In this sense, he was almost like Diogenes, who had the same idea among the Greeks. One of the greatest problems we have is possession, and the other greatest problem we have is ambition. Very often they are interrelated. The fewer things we have, the more likely we are to be somebody. When we cannot hide our weaknesses behind a glamour, they become apparent, and the individual with the bad disposition is not any longer catered to simply because he is rich enough to buy consideration. If we depend on what we are for what we have and what we do, there is a great difference between this and allowing our lives to be built upon shams. Now, I think most people that realize and do today that life is very largely a sham in politics, in entertainment, and in economics. Therefore, there is a great need for simplification. There is some way of getting out of this tremendous tension that we have brought upon ourselves. But we cannot solve the problem by increasing it. We cannot destroy a fantasy by supplanting it with another fantasy equally unreal. And the great end of all fantasies is success. And success can never be a reality until it means the victory of the inner self over the outer personality. Now, this doesn't mean that the victory is a tyranny. It doesn't mean that the individual must do like some of the Indian mendicants and sit on a couch of spikes. It means, however, that the individual gradually and quietly decides where his values are. Now, many of the Jains are educators, physicians, lawyers, doctors, all kinds of professions, but always with a realization that there is a profession that we follow, a job that we have, but inside there is a censorship of consciousness over conduct. And it is this victory of consciousness over conduct that is apparently so lacking today in Western culture. In fact, it's lacking everywhere, but it is particularly obvious in an affluent society. If, therefore, the individual must work from the inside out, then it is necessary to clarify values. And this clarification is not, in the case of the Jains, so different from Buddhism. Buddha and the first great sage of the Jains probably were contemporaries. Jainism has probably the same antiquity as Buddhism, founded about between 5 and 600 BC. And it has many traits and qualifications and conduct patterns very similar to Buddhism. The only difficulty, or difference we may say, is the attitude of the Jain toward worldliness. Buddha gives us the same concept, but the Jain applies it in his daily life, applies it every day to the advancement of his own inner consciousness. He must finally decide which is the most important, what he is or what he has. Now, this is a decision that everyone must make. But the wrong decision has a lot of unpleasant appendices hung on to it. The wrong decision can be very bad for the health. It can be bad for the mind.